Hey there, art nerds. Today I want to share my tips for scoring artist quality professional grade art supplies on a budget. So if you are counting your pennies and saving up, today's vlog is for you. Okay, art nerds, we're gonna see how well I can endure the 101 degree Louisiana heat dressed like this. I am at least sitting in the shade. So today I wanted to share some of my best hacks for saving money on art supplies. I am working with a script because ADHD memory is sometimes not worth very much, but this is a topic that I am pretty familiar with. I spend a lot of time thinking about, and I wanted to share it with you guys because as somebody who reviews art supplies, I buy a lot of art supplies. So I wanted to share some of my tips on how you can save money when art supplies shopping. So keep in mind that I have been art supply shopping for a really long time because I have been an artist for a really long time. I've noticed there are two camps of artists. You have the ones who decided to start making art after their children were born, and then you have the ones who've been making art pretty much their whole lives. I fall into that second camp. So hopefully these tips will help you guys out. This is also totally unsponsored. All opinions and suggestions are my own. They are things that either I use, my husband uses, or my friends use. I'm going to focus on traditional media. I have a tablet review for the Frenzy tablet that I just finished up, and I talk a lot about free and very inexpensive art programs in that. So for those of you who are interested in digital media, you might want to check that review out. There is both a focus on the tablet and a focus on the free art programs that work on said tablet. So I want to start by saying that you can make art with very inexpensive art supplies. I know sometimes it comes across like I'm saying you can't. You absolutely can. It can be a great way to get started. That's how I got started. I got started with Crayola. That was all I could afford for a really long time and all I had access to in Southeast Louisiana. So that is what I used. While there are artists in my family, I don't come from a family of artists. I didn't go to an art school as a kid. I wasn't even in most of the art programs. So my access to art supplies was extremely limited. So I am a big believer in you can work with what you have available and what you can afford, but you may need to adjust your expectations. So when I'm talking about investing more in watercolor to get more out of it, it's because I see people complain that they're not able to recreate the techniques that they see other artists do with professional grade supplies with very inexpensive supplies. So long as you adjust your expectations, you can make art. It may not look like what they're doing. You may have to change your techniques. You may have to be flexible, and you're going to have to be patient with yourself and with the materials, but it is definitely possible. There are artists who use cheap ballpoint pens on copy paper to create wonderful illustrations. Comics can be made with just a pencil, some paper, and an eraser. Although it's nice to have nice art supplies, that should not stop you from making art. All the art supply reviews that I do here, where I encourage you to buy the best you can, it's keeping in mind that many can't actually afford those art supplies, and they are just reviews. They are reviews for people who are looking at this product and wondering if that product is going to fit their needs, fit their budget, and do what they need to do. It is not necessarily meant to be my all-inclusive, all-encompassing opinion. For every expensive watercolor I've reviewed something from Dollar Tree or Five Below or Walmart. It may also be a later aspiration to buy those nicer, more expensive art supplies. It's something to work towards if you want to. Like if you want to sell your art, if you want to sell originals, you do need to start working or begin to work towards increasingly more archival art supplies, which do tend to be the more expensive art supplies. But I'm in no way saying that you cannot make art with inexpensive or cheap art supplies. I mean, that's what sketchbooks are for, and I don't buy the cheapest sketchbooks, but I buy like the 300 series Strathmore or the Blick sketchbooks. I don't buy the nice sketchbooks either. So generally where you save money is going to be where you're going to spend time. All of these suggestions are suggestions that I use or I have used, but they take time, research, and patience. So if you're looking for an immediate cheap fix, many of these suggestions are not really going to be applicable for you. In comics, we used to say that you can be fast, cheap, or nice, and you need to be some combination of the two. With art supplies, we're going to talk about fast and cheap. If you want it fast, it's not going to be cheap. If you want it cheap, it's not going to be fast, unless someone just donates to you. But we're not talking about like Lucky Star kind of occasions. We're not talking about you won the NATO scholarship, or you get a grant, or another artist donates a bunch of art supplies to you, or your art school is liquidating things. We're going to be talking about longer term, more sustainable things that you can count on as a way to save money when you're buying these expensive art supplies. So first off, I hope you have friends, because having friends is a great way to kind of split up the cost of buying art supplies, split up the cost of trying new media, split up the cost of art education. So with watercolors, for example, with 3 friends, you can each buy a tube, a mid-yellow, a mid-red, and a mid-blue. Or if y'all are feeling kind of spendy, you can do a cool yellow and a warm yellow. Someone else can do a cool red and a warm red. Someone else can do a cool blue and a warm blue. And then you divvy up those watercolors into half pans. And this should easily stretch for 3 people. A tube of good quality watercolor should easily be able to be split between 3 people. And then you can store that in an Altoids tin or a small mint tin, and that way you can have a mini watercolor palette of your basic mixing colors. You can use a water brush or an inexpensive synthetic brush like a Zen brush, and then you can split a pack of watercolor paper. It can be inexpensive watercolor paper or more expensive watercolor paper. So you could go like 9 by 12 and y'all could just divvy up the sheets that way. Or you could buy the bigger papers and actually cut the papers to make smaller sheets. Tape bound is generally cheaper. So tape bound, and I'll show you guys an example, it's just bound at the top with tape and glue. That's typically cheaper than block bound and would be much easier to split between friends. The huge sheets that you buy at the art supply store that are $5 and up per sheet can be broken down into much smaller sheets to save money. So this is what I mean by to save money, you're going to spend time. This is going to take some organization. It's definitely going to take some time, and it's going to take some patience, but you can save money. A lot of these art supplies, especially the ones I talk about here, are convenience art supplies. Whether you are buying convenience pre-mixed colors so you don't have to mix them yourself, or you're buying sketchbooks and watercolor books that are already assembled for you. If you want to save money, you're going to spend time. You can also trade art supplies with friends, whether you just want to see if you like the medium, so you borrow them from a friend for a while, like gelatos, if you wanted to get started, just to see if gelatos would be a good fit for you before you buy any of them. You could trade with a friend if you have someone who likes that, or pastels. Any new medium or new art supply, if you have a friend who already has that, ask if you can come over for the day and try them out. Buy them a coffee, buy them a pastry. It's much cheaper than buying an art supply you don't like. Join an art Discord server, because often they're going to share links to coupons, ongoing sales, and some art Discord servers also do like art supply trades, or they sell off their art supplies at a deep discount. The paint box, we do talk about sales from time to time, but I try to save it for when it's like an actual big deal sale, and not just every time Blick or somebody is doing 10% off on something. You can also try writing to art supply companies for samples. Some companies are super happy to send you something. Like if you guys watched my David's haul video, I came home with a bunch of samples. So they're already making up these sample cards, and if you write to them, they may be willing to send you some. But just take it with a grain of salt. Don't be upset or offended if they are not willing to send you some. Try asking at your local brick and mortar store for samples. I'm not talking about stores like Dick Blick necessarily. Chains might not be willing to do samples. I'm talking about your local mom and pop art supply store. Often they get sent samples to give to customers, to get customers interested in a product. And while a sample is often very useful in its own right, it also helps you save money by figuring out, like trading with friends, which art supplies you're actually going to like and which ones you're going to use. And buying things you will like and use is a wonderful way to save money. If your local library provides free art classes, often the materials for that class are included. And on this note, I can only really talk about the classes I teach and the classes I provide, because that's what I can vouch for. I go to great lengths to make sure that my students get quality art supplies to use for the class and to make sure that they have a good experience. So your mileage may vary on this one. You can also request art books from your library, art classes from your library. You can even see, so our library for teens, it doesn't have this for adults yet. There are art supplies that myself and my co-teacher have donated to the program so that teens can have alcohol markers, they can have watercolors, they can have color pencils that they can use at the library. So there are libraries that are doing gardening work and seed exchanges, and you can borrow cooking supplies from like the Livingston Library. So libraries are expanding and they're offering more than what we grew up with expecting. So if you want to see if your library might consider loaning out alcohol markers or loaning out color pencils, something like that, that's definitely something you can write to them and ask them to look into. I highly recommend, as an art supply reviewer, that you watch and read reviews to help you invest your money wisely in art supplies you'll like. YouTube reviews are helpful, written reviews are helpful, Amazon reviews are helpful. Now, something to keep in mind with Amazon reviews is you don't ever want to see great, like not all positives. You want to see a couple negative reviews in there, because I have found that humans make mistakes, and you'll always get that one person who didn't read the description and was expecting something totally different, or that one person who this is just a bad fit for them. That's how you know that it's written by a human, when there's some like not so happy reviews in there. I also like the reviews that include images, particularly on Amazon, and I need to be better about actually sharing the reviews that I write over on Amazon to help people. I highly recommend that you avoid Michaels and Hobby Lobby unless they're having a deeply discounted sale. And Michaels has changed their couponing and their sales structure so much, I couldn't even give you guys advice for that. I'm part of their rewards program. I'm always earning $5, but it runs out, like it's discontinued before I have a chance to actually redeem it. So, and I only live 30 minutes away from a Michaels. I go to Michaels like once a month. So I'm not a fan of their current program. I would honestly recommend avoiding them entirely if possible. I know for many though, this is the best that you have access to. It's what's in your area, it's what's open, it's what you can count on. So this isn't a judgment call. They're both very overpriced for art supplies specifically. And Walmart sells some of the same art and stationery supplies that Michaels does for less, particularly the stationery supplies, particularly some of the pens that are used for calligraphy or for inking comics. You can find them at Walmart for less than you'd find them at Michaels. Keep an eye out for big sales like Prime Day, Black Friday sales, etc. A lot of the art supply stores like Blick and David's and Jerry's, David's does do a Black Friday sale, but they're not online. Like Blick, like Jerry's, like Cheap Joe's, like Jackson's do these kind of big sales. Sign up for their mailing list so that you are notified of when these sales are going on. Taking advantage of sales to buy the materials you need or to stock up on more paint or stock up on more paper is a great way to save some money when it comes to buying art supplies. Unfortunately, this method of buying in bulk or buying for sales in advance, you have to have somewhere to store it, because art supplies do go bad if they are not used and they're not properly stored. So this is another instance of we're saving money, but we're spending space now. We're dedicating space, storage, and organization to these art supplies. So I just want to make it clear that while saving money is a wonderful thing, there's always going to be some other cost. Like the Marie Kondo method, I believe recommends that you don't bulk hoard art supplies. You let the store be your storage. And as somebody with ADHD who squirrels things away and sometimes loses things, forgets where they are, literally like a squirrel, there are a lot of art supplies where it really is better if the store just has them, even if it costs me money, because I'm going to lose them and buy them 5 times over anyway. So those of you with ADHD, I'm sure you've heard of the ADHD tax. A lot of this advice, it comes because I have somebody else who helps me stay on top of these things or helps me manage these things, and because I also have an anxiety disorder that refuses to allow me to forget certain things. So this is not unilateral advice. This is kind of pick and mix. Take what you think will work for you, throw the rest away. And if you guys have suggestions for saving money too, let me know down in the comments. Also, if you are a written word kind of person, since I have show notes for this anyway that I'm working from, I'll share that in the description below for you guys. And if anyone's feeling generous, please consider donating your time by captioning this video so that other people can access it. I do think I do the auto captions, but I know those are not good and I speak very quickly. So like I just mentioned a minute ago, sign up for big retailer mailing lists or any online art supply or stationery store that you like. Sign up for their mailing list because they'll often advertise big sales or discounts, and often if you sign up for their mailing list, they will send you a discount code for your first purchase. So do that before you pay. Utilize plugins like Honey and Retail Me Not for promo codes. I will say that, I mean, I like Honey. They don't sponsor me. They don't know I exist. I use it with my Amazon. I use it when I'm shopping in general. Retail Me Not, Joseph taught me about that years ago. They just collect different coupons. Some of them are expired. Some of them are still good. With Honey and Blick, it always wants to put in the educator's discount for me. If I am an educator, I am a gig educator, but I don't have any kind of an ID, and the library I work for will not register with Blick because that takes effort, and it takes effort is all I can say. You got to submit some paperwork. In fact, when I taught at Nashville Community Education, they also did not want to register as an educational institution with Blick because it took effort. So if you're an educator who does not have an ID and your school isn't registered, you can't use that discount code, which really sucks when you're buying 25 plus people's art supplies. You would like that bulk discount. So that's Honey can be your mileage may vary. Like, they always just want to put that discount in. They don't want to offer me any of the other discount codes. And with Blick, they usually do free shipping, I think, on orders of $59 or more. So, I mean, you have to really weigh it. Like, if you're at 35, is it worth adding extra product so that you hit the free shipping? Kind of depends. So this is another one where if you have like an ongoing list of stuff you always need, stuff you're always running out on, that you're going to use, that you can add to your basket to hit that free shipping, it may be worth doing it. But this is also an instance of you may save a penny, spend a pound to save a penny, so it may not really be worth it to you. Please use discretion on that one. So Slick Deals is a website that Joseph really likes. He checks it every day, and he's usually letting me know about sales and deals. Slick Deals is a user-run site where people submit deals, and for a deal to be slick, it has to be a pretty significant savings generally, or products that never go on sale. So I would recommend you check out Slick Deals just on the regular, because sometimes Walmart is having a deal, sometimes Blick is having a deal. And also, if you see a good sale or a good deal going on, feel free to submit it to Slick Deals too, to help other artists save some money, because we benefit from the community that we contribute to. You know what I mean? A community is only as good as its members. So you can set watches on eBay for generally expensive art supplies. I have not had, that's one I'm not good at. I've asked Joseph to keep an eye out for vintage art supplies for me so I can talk about them a little bit here on the channel, because I'm just not very good about watching eBay. If you are good at eBay though, setting watches for specific search terms, like if you want vintage Prismacolor pencils, that the barrel ones are supposed to be better, that might be a good route to go. I'll also caveat that shopping on AliExpress is not necessarily cheaper than buying in the US. A lot of the stuff that seems too good to be true on sites like Ali, Temu, Wish, it's knockoffs. And when I'm buying Chinese art supplies that are like a legitimate brand and a legitimate product, I'm paying about as much as I would for their US counterparts. So me shopping on AliExpress is not necessarily a cost-cutting measure. Also though, if you live in cities that have Book Off, which is a chain of Japanese used bookstores, those are great for art books. McKay's used to be my favorite place for art books, manga, and sci-fi novels. So if you have good used bookstores, frequent those, because you can find art books there, you can find comics there, and obviously that's a way to save money. Also, your library, you can fill out, if they don't have the books you want, you can fill out a library request form and request that they purchase those books and bring them in. So that can be another way to save money on your education. your art education. Check Craigslist. This was a big one when I lived in Nashville and Savannah, especially around colleges with art departments, because at the end of the semester, a lot of the students are looking to liquidate art supplies that they're never going to use. So for example, after I took, I made a clay man for one of my classes, and now I can't remember what the official term for that is, but it was a figure study of muscles, and I bought all of this Roma plasticine clay. I hate sculpting. I'm never going to do it again. I sold it very cheaply on Craigslist to a fellow student just so that they could have access to it and to get it out of my house. I have bought gouache off of Craigslist. I have bought storage off of Craigslist. You have to be careful with Craigslist. It's definitely not perfect, but it can be a good way. Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, it can be a good way to get art supplies and art supply storage cheaply. Estate sales, I have found, are just a total miss. Nobody around here seems to be artists, so it's not like I can get art supplies like that. But if you live in a more artsy area, that might also be a good way to go. Garage sales and estate sales. There's a site called FreeCycle. I don't have any experience with that. That was one Joseph suggested, and it's just for people who are looking to, they've maybe upgraded something they have, and they want to see that the old version, like a television or a bike or what have you, goes to a home that can use it or someone who can use it. Some cities have art supply thrift stores where you can either trade in existing art supplies or buy the art supplies very cheaply. I know Nashville has one. There are places in Texas that have that. I think New Orleans has a couple too, but they're more downtown, so I've never been. In my experience with Nashville, those tend to be more children's art supplies, mural supplies, and like knitting, crochet supplies, but obviously it's going to depend on the area you live in, and it's probably going to depend on when people are cleaning out their house and getting rid of things. So that could be a good way to acquire art supplies or crafting supplies very cheaply. So when it comes to getting your art supplies on the cheap, patience and persistence are your best friends when it comes to saving money. It may take a really long time to build up the supplies you need for your dream projects. Doing projects in monochrome, monotone, and limited color selections will help you to continue to make art as you're building up what you need. It'll help you learn color theory, and it'll also help you save some money. Working mixed media, so that means with a variety of art supplies, not just watercolor, not just watercolor pencils, not just markers, all three of them, for example, using gouache with your watercolor, for example, using markers with your watercolor, will help you, will allow you to use what you already have in stock. So I hope, also just getting weird with it, experimenting with it in your sketchbook, seeing what things are capable of. If something is water soluble, using that as a faux watercolor, for example. If something makes an interesting texture, using that to add texture to a piece. Experimenting and playing and making friends with other artists are all great ways that, while it might not seem immediately like it's going to help you save money, it's going to give you access to a wider range of supplies than you might have been able to buy on your own. It's also going to give you access to a knowledge base that you might not have had just Googling things and looking things up. It's going to give you ideas and solutions. So joining a friendly community that enjoys problem solving can be a great way to not only make your artistic life richer, but it can also be a great way to save money on some art supplies. So speaking of great art communities, if you are looking for a friendly and low-key art community to join, you can join my Discord server, The Paint Box. It is totally free, and I'll put a link for you guys down in the description below. What are your favorite ways to save money when art supply shopping? One that's been suggested to me is that some art supply stores have a free box of just like damaged supplies that they can't sell. I have literally never seen that. So if you have seen that, if that is a thing you've encountered, let me know. It sounds cool. Please also, in these kind of instances where whether you're asking for samples, whether you're attending events where samples are being distributed, whether someone is liquidating their supplies, please don't take more than you need. There's no need to hoard a bunch of art supplies. And just as you may wish to benefit from other people liquidating theirs, from time to time, liquidate yours as well. I mentioned earlier that I've donated art supplies to my local library for some of their programming. That's a way. If you have little libraries and it isn't ungodly hot where you live, you can leave them in little libraries and totally delight somebody. You can put them up on Facebook, FreeCycle, Craigslist, but by also passing along those art supplies you're no longer going to use, you are creating a culture where we are sharing with one another, we're more open with one another, and we're helping one another more. And I think that is something that, while some people benefit from the art community where they live, if you live in a small town, that might not be accessible to you. So we can create that community as individuals by making those kind of positive choices that will help make the art world a better place. So I hope I gave you guys some good ideas. I'm sorry that I mostly read from it. It is so hot, and I don't have a teleprompter, and I'm outside also, and my eyesight is not great, so a teleprompter wouldn't work too well. But I wanted to make sure that I covered all of these points because I think there are some great suggestions in there. A lot of these are suggestions that I use all the time, and while to me, because I have used some of these suggestions for decades, it seems like a big old duh, I know that for a lot of people, they may not realize that some of these big art retailers have massive sales at certain times of the year, or that some of these retailers send out discount codes if you sign up for their newsletter, or that you could easily buy 3 tubes of watercolor and split them with friends and multiply the colors you have access to with a small initial investment. The more communal we think, the more community we build, the more access we have to more resources, because we can kind of offset the costs among a greater number of people. So if you can put together a group of people all interested in learning watercolor, you guys could buy a 24 color tube set from a high quality brand and divvy it out. In fact, for one of our classes, we had the kids make 12 color watercolor palettes using Paul Rubens tube watercolors, and we were able to, not everybody got a full pan, everybody got a third of a pan, but 13 kids got enough watercolor to do like 3 paintings that day. So there are ways, if you are savvy, if you're willing to make friends, if you're willing to put some of your pride aside and ask for samples or share samples with friends, there are ways that you can offset some of these very high art supply costs. So a while back, I talked about whether or not cheap art supplies, I'm not necessarily talking about Crayola, I'm talking about student grade stuff that is often a whole lot of colors and not super expensive, whether that's really such a good deal. I think you guys should check it out. I will link it down in the comments. A lot of the advice that I'm sharing in today's video is how you can get artist quality, professional grade art supplies as inexpensively as possible, because look, with inflation, and then artists don't make, many of us don't make hardly any money really, and it is always a bit of a hustle and a grind to earn money as an artist. We need to access these nice quality supplies so we can sell our art, but we also can't spend buku money on these supplies. So finding ways to make it more affordable, super important. So if you guys have any suggestions that I didn't cover, let me know down in the description below. If you have a favorite art supply store that does hands-on events or does samples, shout them out in the description below. If you have a community event around art supplies that helps artists learn skills and learn resources and access resources, and it doesn't cost a lot of money, shout them out down in the comments below. Help your fellow artists by sharing the resources that you know about. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I hope to see you guys again really soon with another vlog, review, or tutorial. And if you are feeling generous and you want to help me in my mission to help you guys make art a habit, you can join me at Patreon at patreon.com/natosoup. And if you'd like to check out my art, you can check me out on these social media sites here. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I look forward to seeing you guys again soon, and I hope this will help you make art a habit. Bye guys!